This last piece, the quality assurance plan, is kind of the toughest in that there's no way in a week, you can learn, or I could teach you, or I could probably show you, but you're never going to pick up everything that you need to get done inside there. And wow, let me correct my spelling from last time. That's just terrible right there. I can't talk and type and spell at the same time apparently. So the idea of the quality assurance plan in general is it's kind of like your project plan for testing. It very much mimics that project plan. In that its job is to tell you what are the different phases that are happening. Its job will be to schedule it. The job is to tell you who's doing the testing and when it's going to get done and all that sort of stuff. It ties into that main project plan, of course. Testing is a phase within that. But there's a lot of things that need to happen. Because remember, test cases just don't instantly exist. I need to develop them and create them, have them ready when it comes time to test. I need to have pieces that are going to go off and double check my tests and make sure that everything's going on inside of that. So your quality assurance plan can take a bunch of different forms. The stuff I want to see from that mostly, as I said, is the who, what, and to a lesser degree when. We want to capture those big things. So the biggest thing is, let me control space that, get that. We want to have the test phases inside of there. And if you want to get fancy, I'm going to go ahead and make that a heading 3 inside of there. And so let's talk about the test phases you're going to do. Now you could do this through bullet points. You could do this through a table. I'm going to choose bullet points because a little less formatting involved. But unit testing. Okay, you have a unit test phase. At this point, justify what and why you're doing this. So we want to test the design elements so that we can ensure low-level quality before integrating and saving time down the road. That's a very generic answer. I'm sure you guys have a much better understanding of the value of unit testing than that, having written all that you have so far and read all that you have so far. But that's a little bit the type of thing we're looking for. We can also talk a little bit about the approach. So the approach is going to be done by developers during development by hand. You could choose automation inside of there and documented as listed above. So something along those lines. We're basically trying to tie in these pieces. So the stuff we did up above would normally fall within sections of the bigger test plan, but we're just basically at this point trying to outline what you would have in the bigger test plan. So the next phase is going to be system testing. System test, and then this just basically independently executed testing based on the plan above. Not too much inside of here. The most important thing is who's doing it. It's going to be independently tested. Again, the when we'll worry about later on. That's not something we'll get to the schedule. But basically, we want to make sure we're identifying who and what we're going to do. The system, it's the user acceptance testing. All right. So then, again, who's doing this? We have we will recruit sample testers from the real user base for a beta test and use our employees in the business side to check for policy compliance using the tests above. Again, same sort of thing here. Now, these are the 3 that obviously you would include because these are the 3 that obviously required. So just come up with some justification past, hey, I was required to do these. These are ones that exist, but we would know who's doing it and why you're doing it. But one that I would highly encourage you to consider is your performance testing. Okay, so who's going to do the performance testing and what environment are you going to use? This is a big question. So we will use the production environment prior to the first release. That's one thing. Or perhaps instead of using that, we'll use a production mirror environment. Or we can use the backup environment. Or we can use the SIT environment. A lot of different companies do it in a lot of different ways. I've worked at companies who has a full production environment. They have a production mirror environment, so if there's a failover, they have a whole data center in St. Louis and then a whole different data center in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or something like that. So that way, if one's dead, they flip over the other one. I've been places that have a full production environment, then a full performance environment, then a full unit test environment, a full user acceptance testing environment, a full development environment. I've been at places that have a production environment and another server that you can test. It just depends on the amount of money the company wants to spend on these things. But so what environments you're going to use? Again, the testing here, I mean, you probably have some performance testing folks. So who's going to do it? There's probably somebody focused on here. And then again, the what. So since you don't have a plan up above, we will be validating the non-functional requirements to ensure availability. Again, I can't spell and think and type out loud. Availability. There you go. Excellent. And memory use and throughput. Whatever you might be doing inside there, whatever your other requirements there. So that's the high level. The most important thing here is we want to capture the test phases. Are there other things that you're going to have inside of there? As you said, standards, measures, metrics. What are the things that could be coming up? If you don't know what these are, well, you'll learn about them as you go. Be aware of standards is, like your development lifecycle standards. Hey, we're going to always have reviews at the end of every phase. We're going to have checklists that are going to ensure that our requirements are going to be validated against these checklists that are written correctly. We're going to bring in a consultant to check our design and see if there's any security issues as part of our design. We're going to use this test tool. Whatever these things that could be, bring them in. I want to see something to that effect, but the core of this needs to be what are the test phases, who's doing those test phases, what is that general plan, which again we have up above. And if you do bring in something like performance test or a post-verification test or something like that, how do I get to those tests? You might even want to add a table, another table inside of there. Again, the whole of this, everything of this, the assignment, it's not necessarily a big, massive thing. I'm not looking for a 30-page submission inside of this. It says, 2 to 3 new pages is the expectation inside of here. And so given the 4 sections, you're talking about a minimum of a half a page each. And then not much more than that. They might sprawl off a 3rd page. So we're not looking for a massive test plan, but we are looking for the foundations of what would go into one. Most importantly, tying back to the requirements, tying back to the design that you created in the previous phases.